us remember in history, some of you saw on Eyes on the Prize when they fought in Alabama to give us the right to vote, one man that led people to the courthouse and was physically punched over and over by the sheriff, Jim Clark, was Reverend C.T. Vivian. From fighting for the right for us to vote to now where they have schemes to undermine our right to vote. We've gone from Jim Crow to James Crow Jr. Esquire. Reverend Vivian, tell us how you view these 50 years and the responsibilities we have now to pick up and protect what you and Dr. King and others fought to give us.
You know, I think the thing about the 50 years stays constantly in our minds and in our hearts, all right, is that the problem is how to do it now, all right, is that, and we've been talking about it because we understand that it's what was that inspires us, but it's what now is going to change things, and that we can't make any mistakes on that. All right? And that we have to look for the worst of the problems we have and cure them. Nobody's going to do it but us, but we're capable of doing it. And so we shouldn't want anybody else to do it. I mean, for them to do it for us says we're who we used to be, not who we are now. All right? Is that, so we're trying to put SCLC back together again. SCLC ran into some very difficult problems, and as a result of it, and money's just one of them, I mean some real difficult problems, right? And at least 3 of us have decided we're coming back to remake SCLC because we owe it to Martin King, right? You see, we owe it to Martin King, all right? Is that one of the past presidents is coming back, and one of Bernard Lafayette, and that's terribly important for this reason. In fact, Lafayette is taking nonviolence all over the nation. Yeah, thank you, Doc. Is that he's taken it all over the world. We brought 19 people in from Nigeria. And kept them for 2 weeks. They've gone back to do some good work already. Now, but the point being is, we're right when we say that we will win, but we didn't win before simply because we went to church or because we marched. We went because we had a solving of the problem. We all would have moved. We were all upset. We all wanted a better way to live, before Martin ever moved to Montgomery. We wanted something better, but we were getting exactly what the sister was talking about, all right? Now, the thing is, when we look at it, we've almost forgotten why we made it over. Is that we were being killed every day in the South, all over the South, in fact, all right? Nothing changed. The laws were passed, but nothing changed in the South, all right? Is that our schools didn't change like they did in Kansas. Nothing changed because we didn't have the right strategy. What Martin King brought was not just a matter of a new voice, but a new strategy, a new way to move. It was nonviolent direct action that made it possible for us to win. We didn't win simply because we stood up. We stood up because we had a strategy upon which we could stand up without being killed, all right? And we've almost forgotten that that strategy was there and that it ever existed. But without it, we will not make it. We are to change the world we live in. That's what that strategy means. It means that we're not just to change black people or the black condition. We can all stand up in the street and make our voices heard if we choose to do so. It was interesting that every movement followed the African American movement, but and we have to see that the African American movement was based on nonviolent direct action. All of the people who wanted to act didn't act because they were afraid to act, right? But when Martin gave us all, black, white, yellow, pink, polka dot, that doesn't even matter. It gave helpless people a way to move, then we all move. We were all suffering, and we all still will be suffering until we believe that we really have a method that will allow us to win. Nobody wants to act, they want to win, right? We want to change the condition into which we live. That's the important thing. You know, I was just thinking about problems that we have, like education. You know, a child is dropping out of school every 27 seconds. I didn't say minutes, I said seconds. And why should they be dropping out one every 27 days, much less seconds? Is that when we look at it, is that 50%, we love to see pictures in the magazines of young people with the graduation hats on, and both in high school and college, and it makes us feel good when we look at it. The pictures are so pretty, and there's so many of them, you see, but you see what is really happening, 40% of us are dropping out of school. And within a year and a half, they're in prison. And we are not talking about that, or are we finding a way to change it? But it becomes very clear we can't be a people, if we are dropping out when other people are getting major educations in the sciences. When we look at China with 40 million people coming out with degrees in science, and the United States is now 18th in the world, and we are at the bottom of that, right? Is that the responsibility that we have is quite great, but quite important. And just as we walk down the streets then, we've got to do the same kind of thing right now. In fact, if we take the 1 million people in prisons alone, right? We're not quite certain of that number, but everybody uses it, right? So we don't know whether it's small or large, but we know that too many of us are in prisons today, right? Prisons, right? And they are dying in prison, and they're not out here helping anybody exist, all right? Nor are we creating a means for them to really live, all right? And then we say, but why are they selling dope? Because they don't have a way to live, all right? And if we don't change it, and how do you change it becomes the issue. It's in the action we find out who we are. And it's in the action we're going to find out who we'll be. You can't do it talking. You know, I was so happy when I saw Al on TV, and what I said is that that's what we used to do on Monday night during the movement, right? Is that we had a church on Sunday, then we had mass meeting on Monday, and that's where we got together as a community. That's when we were thinking together so that we could act together, right? That's when we heard the voices of those that would make a difference. That's where we learn what we liked and what we didn't like and what we would do. And we would live and die on the basis of what we do. We'll not live and die on the basis of what we say. All right? And the thing is what, and when we hear, see, you know, we can hear him every night now, you know, man. Almost, you see, almost every night, man. We have to be on the road sometimes, so we don't get to hear him all the time. But the point is, he's taking that message, and he has an immediate contact with the President of the United States as well, right? Now, I'm not just saying that because we're at his meeting. I say it all the time. In fact, I told him a long time ago before there was a meeting, right, that I'm glad that we have somebody to take the place of the Monday night mass meeting. See, it's when we come together, hear the words, all right, that we know are backed up by the word, right? It is then we have a chance to win. Is that when we look at those education figures, we can't make it without it. And when we look at the fact of what Martin King did, we can't win simply because we use his name. We got to use it because we use his methods, because we have his strength, because we take that chance, all right? We're willing to die for something. If you're not willing to die for something, you're not fit to live for something. That's what Martin said, right? And that's what it's really all about. We are a people that have had to die for nothing. So now that we've made it, let us die for something. All right? We have lived without lots of money. All right? All right? And but we will never make it if we don't use the money we now have properly, right? Is that how do we organize? How do we put our what we have behind real meaningful programs? That's what changes things, right? How will we really work with each other to make things happen? We committed ourselves at SCLC. We're remaking it because of Martin, right? But the thing is, we committed ourselves to what? To understanding that the best thing we have done as black people is to put 40-some people in Congress. And see what I'm saying? Is that we got political power. And we say, but what are they doing? Well, they're doing a lot more than it seems, but they'll do a lot more when you seem like you are behind them and want them to do something, right? And we have to see it in terms of our ability. So what we're saying is, everybody should be involved in making everybody else register to vote, right? That's the thing that we've done so well, right? We didn't win simply because it was nice, all right? We won because it was necessary, all right? And we have to make ourselves know that we can't afford to lose anything we've won. We work too hard to lose it, right? All right? And we haven't time as a people to redo what we've already done when we know how to do it, right? We've got to go beyond it to something higher and better that is so definite so that we really free our young people. And you know what? I was just talking somewhere sometime, and it hit me, who's going to be our grandma? That's who kept our families together. That's who kept us religious. That's who kept us believing in God, all right? That's who kept us going to church, even when there wasn't anything there to hear. They figured it was better for you to be there than not to be there, right? Point being is that we must go to those churches where we have a chance to move and act. And those that don't want to act after church, forget them, all right? You don't need them, all right? Is that we've got to understand the reason for going to church is to organize to save ourselves, all right? Let us be about the central business.
All right. Reverend C.T. Vivian. We're coming out of this convention targeting companies. He talks specifically about companies. He talks specifically about Operation Breadbasket and our next speaker's role. He has since then and during then bring the movement that started in the South North and urbanized it and expanded it. I came out of that movement. He opened political doors. The downside that people don't give credit to is I've seen at Saturday morning meetings, as we do Saturday morning meetings here, that started in Chicago. He's had to preach while people stood in the audience with guns pointed at him. He ran for president with more threats than any candidate ever had, facing investigations of nothing, just trying to make something up to scar his name. We go get Americans that were hostage and land at the airport and reporters ask, who paid the bill? But he is still here, and he is still with us. Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. That was great. Thank you. Now we go.
Al, let me alone. I want to express thanks to God for allowing our family to gather today to engage in meaningful discussion, reflection, and projection. Allowing us to gather the only place we could gather in a relevant African-American church. We do not take Pastor Waldron for granted, but we have faced too many locked doors and closed churches from our message. So when a pastor does open up to a meeting like this, don't take this pastor for granted. Pastor Waldron, please stand. I really want to thank God for this connection between this family of panelists today and Reverend Sharpton in a special way, because we must make something theologically clear about the ring of authenticity that you hear in Reverend Sharpton as a bit of connectivity. And when you hear Mrs. Abernathy speak, or Reverend Moss, or Reverend Vivian, there's something so genuine you have to listen, both the language and the message. The Bible says, remove not the ancient landmarks our mothers and fathers have set. When you separate from those landmarks, you are adrift without a sense of historical connection. One thing worse than not reading the scripture, to read it and to misinterpret it. Reverend Sharpton's strength coming out of Bishop Washington's church, yes. Reverend Bill Jones, and out of Breadbasket and SCLC, we see it commonly said today that this is now the Joshua generation. That's not true biblically. Joshua came out of Moses' army.
That's right.
Joshua helped to lead the wilderness movement between 60 and 08. That was the Joshua generation. This is the post-Joshua generation. Joshua came out of Moses' army.
Right.
Those who came out of the king and the Abinadab's army, that's the Joshua generation. There's not a post-Joshua generation. Reverend Al spans the Joshua generation and the post-Joshua. That's why his consciousness would obligate him to put these two panels, because he stands between two generations. He is the connection. Am I making sense to y'all? Because Joshua knew Moses. Those who didn't know Dr. King and Dr. Abernathy can't be Joshua. Those who don't know C.K. Steele can't be Joshua. Those who didn't know Dr. King's father can't be the Joshua generation. This is the Joshua generation. This is the post-Joshua generation. And that connectivity is important. I am a bit perplexed today as I listen to these challenging statements. Dr. King in his last staff meeting, it's also a mistake. They keep referring to Dr. King's name solely. That is a huge mistake. Even he knew better. Dr. King said, when I go to the airport, I am a pilot. He said, but on the ground is the ground crew that gets the plane up and gets the plane down. He said, I cannot make it without a co-pilot. I can't fly through storms by myself. And so Ralph Abernathy is my co-pilot. And when I'm sleeping, my co-pilot flies for me. And our last staff meeting before going to Memphis, we received a call about midnight. Dr. Abernathy said Martin wants to meet with us in the morning at 10 o'clock at Ebenezer. Dr. King couldn't make that call. He didn't have the strength to make that call. Dr. Abernathy was our rock. He was our frame of reference. He was Dr. King's rock. And said, do come, whatever you're doing, come. I did not want to go to that meeting. I was doing a program, Breadbasket. Bevel was doing open housing. Bernard was doing something else. We were busy doing what we do. But come to the meeting. I remember getting to the airport at 7 o'clock, and Dr. Abernathy, I missed my plane. He said, I knew you were going to miss it. That's a 7:25 plane. So come to Atlanta. And Dr. Abernathy convened us. He said, Martin is coming in the study in a minute. He came in and sat down. And frankly, I am now where he was. I'm a bit perplexed about where we are today. Dr. King said, I've been with Ralph and his wife, Juanita, and Andy and Jean, and my wife, Coretta, for about 3 days. I've had a migraine headache. I don't quite know what to do. He said, I thought about quitting. Maybe I've done as much as I could do. We won Montgomery bus boycott. We have public accommodations. We have the right to vote. I'm now being attacked by my college classmates. I'm being attacked by ministers. I'm being attacked by the press. I've been attacked by the White House. Maybe I have done as much as I could do. Maybe I could just become president of Morehouse or begin to write books and give lectures. He said, but if I stop now, Sojourner the Truth and Frederick Douglass, those who never stop, would not forgive me. I can't stop. And Andy Young said, Doc, don't talk that way about quitting. He said, Andy, be quiet. Don't say peace, peace when there is no peace. Let me finish talking. He said, then I thought maybe since our movement had become divided, there's Stokely and there's Rapp and there's Roy and there's Whitney and there's John, maybe we could, if I fast to the point of death, the leaders with whom there is disagreement on tactics, we're still friends, could come by my bedside at my point of death, and we could regroup our unity. He knew how good, how important, Mark, that was. And then as if a fresh breath of air blew, he said, we're going to turn a minus into a plus. We're going on to Memphis because garbage workers, they too, while they wear soiled uniforms, want to see their child graduate from college too. They too have dreams. Then we're going to Washington. Maybe to Washington to engage in civil disobedience. Maybe tie up traffic and go to jail in Washington to shift from Vietnam War to the war on poverty at home. Those three stages were the same as Jesus. Let this cup pass from me. As he prayed, disciples slept. And not my will but thine be done. That was leading into Memphis. That meeting was convened by Dr. Abernathy. Others of us were disciples learning from, not quite appreciating what we're looking at until many of us had lost it. Today, Dr. King said on that same day, over this, my fear is we're moving to integration, but it may be integrating into a burning house. I am not as excited now, even though he talked about the mountaintop later on that week, about integrating into a burning house. This struggle ultimately is not just about direction, about complexion, it's about direction. We have a black on the Supreme Court now. Would you rather have the all-white male Warren Supreme Court or this diverse court? This diverse court may undermine Section 5. This diverse court might take away affirmative action. And so is it about diversity or is it about direction? Is it about color? Is it about direction? Which is a bit more complicated. That's why I'm a bit confused about this burning house. Many of our churches, we live in our faith, but we live under the law. And what made Dr. King and Raf's movement significant was they changed the law, not just inspiration. We boycotted in 55, but won the law in 56. Mrs. Parks was no seamstress with bad feet sitting on the bus too tired to get up. She was a freedom fighter. Mrs. Parks taught literacy. She traveled the country with A. Philip Randolph and Josephine Baker. Mrs. Parks was no pitiful lady. She met with Fred Gray every day for a year to go to jail, to challenge the 54 Supreme Court decision's validity. We won the boycott in 55, but we won the lawsuit in 56. She was not a woman with tired feet. She was tired of being oppressed, and she was a freedom fighter. I say that, Reverend Al, because if we buy into the title "pitiful ladies" story, we think title "pitiful ladies" are freedom fighters, and they're not. My next point is that this is not just a 50-year celebration. That would be a huge mistake. After 246 years of slavery, headquartered on Wall Street, cotton picked in Alabama, processed and sold in New York, where the African burial ground is this morning, on which the Federal Plaza is built today. The slave market was New York, not Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. The first state to abolish slavery was Vermont, because slavery peopled the whole coast. So after 246 years in slavery, abolition came 150 years ago. But we were enslaved longer than we have been free.
Right.
We were enslaved for 246, been free 246, 150, and then took that back. So we really been free since 65. We've been free 48 years. We've come from taxes without representation for 48 years. We've been free 48 years. We've gone from being hit in the mouth about trying to vote in 65 to the White House. We've gone from the balcony of Memphis to the balcony of the White House in 40 years. It's the wilderness years. And those who fought in the wilderness must have a role to play in determining the next stage, because that was Dr. King and Abner who laid the groundwork for the next stage of our struggle. Now, this point. Today, The Harlem we once knew is on the way out. Harlem's where they sent us to when they took us away from Wall Street. We once lived on Wall Street. They put us across the trees now called Central Park. But we came up here as renters, not as owners. Now they're putting us out of Harlem. They're gentrifying Harlem. Harlem, probably, there's a reasonable chance Harlem may not have a black successor to Charlie Rangel. In Detroit today, Reverend Al, you're part of this, the governor appointed a czar in 7 cities to replace democratically elected mayors. Sit down the mayor, sit down the council with the power to end labor contracts and sell off city assets. So a czar sold the Pontiac Stadium, a $50 million building for $500,000 and began to work for the man who he sold it to. They took our democracy and Justice Department is silent. You mean that they take away our vote? 53% of all blacks in Michigan today do not have an elected official that they can vote for at the local level. They took it away without a resistance. Today, we are free but not equal. We're number 1 in athletics. March Madness, May Sadness. March, we playing ball, May we're not graduating. March Madness, but May Sadness. There'll be a big ball game in Atlanta this weekend. There'll be a lot of madness, but come May there'll be a lot of sadness. I'm perplexed. We're free but not equal. We're number 1 in politics, number 1 in immortality, number 1 in short life expectancy, number 1 in unemployment, number 1 in home foreclosures, number 1 in church foreclosures. They're closing schools and hospitals and transportation. They said as opposed to equal access to education for all of us, charter schools for some of us. Now what does that mean? Well, when they get in these semi-privates, they really learn well. Well, surely Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego could learn well under good conditions, but it's just not could Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego learn. It's just what about the rest of them? The most blessed could always make it. Lastly, there's something called today in Chicago. Reverend, there are no gun shops in Chicago. There are no gun ranges in Chicago. Why are we the number 1 killing machine? Guns are manufactured in the suburbs. Guns in. Drugs come across the border. Drugs in. Guns in. Drugs in, jobs out because of trade policy, and homes taken. Jobs out, guns in, drugs in, homes taken. There is no urban policy for reconstruction. There was a plan to destroy, but there is no plan for what was the plan for reconstructing Europe? Something called Marshall Plan, 50-year loans. At 2% government secured. We need a reconstruction bank with $2.5 million of money offshore and $2.5 million in Wall Street banks. We need a long-term, low-interest development bank to build where we live. I close on this note, Al, it burns my soul. With all of my babies dying, we seem to have adjusted. One thing worse than slavery is to adjust to it. Al, in most southern states, the number of blacks in jail is bigger than the number of margin of the governor's campaign. More of us have lost the right to vote than have the vote to elect a governor or senator. That's a discussion. There are 2 Wall Street companies that own all of the prison telephone systems. They make $1.5 billion a year off of prison telephones. A call from Utah, a call coming from New York. He has a brother in jail in Utah. It costs his mother $15 a minute to receive the call. In Chicago, they make $3 million a year off of prison telephone calls. They make 600 products, from Victoria's Secrets to making car parts, in the prisons in Illinois. There's some kids been in jail 5 years on pre-trial detention. They've not been charged. Jail is a hotel. Jail is a hotel. Jail is a housing complex for them. And so I'm perplexed because I think we have a false sense of joy. I think that we are on a rudderless boat. There was a game not years ago when the Jets played the Cleveland Browns. And they said if the Jets on the 4th down got 5 yards, they would keep the ball and could get maybe a field goal. The Jets got 3 yards, so technically they lost the ball with 30 seconds to go, so Cleveland gets the ball, they could run their clock out. But the Cleveland Browns safety man, in his excitement, took his helmet off and threw it in the air. We got him. Referee blew the whistle. You can't take your helmet off before the game is over. And so he was penalized 15 yards. Jets kept the ball, kicked the field goal and won the game. The moral of that is you can't shout before the game is over.
Reverend Jesse Jackson.